a stand-up comedy act by Safwan Rahman from Halal Fried Comics. Safwan is a stand-up comedian and founder of Halal Fried Comics, a Muslim comedy show aimed at showcasing and nurturing the best in new Muslim comedic talent. He is a recent semi-finalist at the Western New Act of the Year 2024 and has beaten the infamous Gong Show at the Comedy Store. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your biggest round of applause to Safwan Rahman.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How is everyone? Everyone good? I'm going to be honest with you. I was planning on, I think Ian from PwC, he really ruined the beginning of my set, because I was planning on doing my first 10 minutes about all the ski trips I've been on recently, you know. Apparently not very relatable. Who here was at the community leaders event in the other room? Anyone? Who here was here for the Dragon's Den? My favorite was table 2. Who did table 2? I've got a question for you. You guys are the cafe idea, right? I've got a question. Does the cafe do shisha? Because that's how you turn that idea into $1 trillion. I don't think it's halal though. That's, that you have to, is shisha halal? I don't think so. No, it's not. It depends what flavor, I think. Anyway, so let me start by saying something you don't hear often. It's an honor to be in Birmingham today. Who here is from Birmingham? Okay, maybe not the right joke to tell today. I could tell because not many people join the Qasr Travelers Namaz, you know. I thought Birmingham was bankrupt. Is it bankrupt? Did you have to go to the IMF? Was it like when Pakistan has to go to the IMF to get your bin collections and your libraries open? In Bangladesh, we don't even have that when we're not bankrupt. We don't have bin collections. I feel like the other councils should not pay their bills. What's the point? Anyway, no, to be serious for a sec, it's really an honor to be here at Muslim Council of Britain Leadership Conference. I told my parents I was going to be here. They don't know what Muslim Council of Britain is. And anyone here, okay, I'll test you because some of you might be judgmental. Does anyone know? Can anyone explain in a sentence? No, no one can. It's oh, oh, wow, that's good. I can tell from your lanyard you work at the right place. You're, okay, yeah. But basically, the way I explained it to my parents is it's like, anyone here got WhatsApp family groups? And then, you know there's a secret admin group for all the admins. Do you guys know this? If you don't know, it's because you're not part of the admins group, right? But yeah, that's basically what I said. It's like the admins group, except you can't kick anyone out. So there's not really much point. But WhatsApp family groups, they're basically forwarded du'as, right? A lot of du'as, a lot of celebrating your children's achievements, especially if it's a son. That's the main thing. And a lot of organizing dawat, right? A lot of organizing events. So it's basically what MCB do, right? Dua, dawat, and then celebrating achievements. So I thought that's really good. Anyone here Bangladeshi? No? I'll tell you, so Bangladeshis, our WhatsApp, there's one person. How is there only one person? Okay, there's an entire table now sitting at the back. But basically, I posted, there was a story on our family group, on our Bangladeshi family group, right? One person posted that their son got into Cambridge, right? That's quite impressive, right? Your son got accepted into Cambridge, mashallah, right? It got 15 likes, 2 comments, right? Someone posts a picture of a fish. That's like 50 likes. The whole day they were talking about the fish. I was like, that's how you know you're in a Bangladeshi WhatsApp group. I was like, we need to start muting the chat. Anyway, I thought one thing I really like about one of the campaigns here is the general election register to vote. Has everyone here registered to vote? We're not going to have a brown prime minister any longer. So that's one of the sad parts of, it depends on your views, I guess, right? Brown leader's not lasting very long. Hamza Yusuf, how long did he last? Anyone know? The good news is his replacement is also Pakistani. Anyone know this? The Scottish Labour leader, also Pakistani. But yeah, Rishi Sunak, how long did he last? Maybe 2 years, potentially? I'm talking him already in the past tense, right? But one thing, I won't tell you how to vote, right? I'm not going to be that irresponsible. But all I'm going to tell you is there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Just remember that. But Rishi Sunak, he can get you 50% off, up to £10 with the Eat Out to Help Out campaign. So just remember that, right? I will, let me tell you a little bit about Halal Fried Comics. So someone here was talking about hiking and how it's not a very halal environment. Stand-up comedy is 100 times worse, I guarantee you. Stand-up comedy, all of it is bars, pubs, and nightclubs, right? That's pretty much all stand-up comedy. So I started up Halal Fried Comics because I was sick of, so what I did, the reason I started doing comedy last year, I lost my job, I had a newborn baby at home, so I decided to make a financially responsible decision and start doing stand-up comedy, right? My wife was not very supportive, and then later she thought, yeah, actually, this is a good idea. And then I got in touch with Aziz Foundation. Anyone here know Aziz Foundation? You're related to Aziz. You're related to a foundation. Are you related to Aziz from Aziz Foundation? Asif Aziz, yeah. So basically, I emailed them. Anyone ever emailed an info at Aziz, like an info at whatever website? They actually responded. This is the most unrealistic part of the story. He actually responded. He met up with me. He said, yeah, we've got a venue and a hotel. Let's trial it. And we thought, let's just do one show, right? See how it goes. Sold out show. Sold out. Even people who run mainstream comedy shows, they were like getting in touch with me. How do you do it? So there's a lot of demand for this type of comedy, right? And now we've got one of the most successful comedy shows. Our last show was also sold out. We had Fateh Al Ghori. You guys know Fateh Al Ghori? She headlined our last show. It was one of the most successful shows ever. Fatia, did I say her name correctly? Fatia. My sister's called Fatia, so I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah, and basically, even much bigger comedy stores, like some of the biggest comedy stores in the UK, they were reaching out to us and they were really impressed. So there's a lot of demand for it, right? Let me finish on one of my most popular, one of my favorite jokes. So I'm Bangladeshi, right? Which apparently is just that table at the back right now, that are Bangladeshi. But we get a lot of complaints, you know. By the way, actually, I'm distracted. The shed people, you guys, did you build that shed, like, did you come in early to build that shed? Wow, can we give it a big applause for this? Although I'm guessing you seem like the sort of people who, that's what you do anyway on a Sunday morning, right? That's your hobby, it's your hobby and also your job. But anyway, so I'll carry on my story. I am Bangladeshi. I read an article in the Daily Mail recently. It said Bangladeshis, they don't integrate, they don't adopt British values. How can they when they live in ethnic ghettos, you know? Alum Rock, Whitechapel. Yeah, you don't have to name other areas, come on. Are you Bangladeshi, by the way? No, so you shouldn't name any other areas, you know? So we don't adopt British values, right? Because we all live in ghettos. I was shocked, you know, is this what people think of us? Is this what white people think of us, you know? So I thought, let me send this article to some of my white friends. Hopefully they disagree with the article. I feel better about myself. Then I realized something. I don't have any white friends, you know? I don't even know any white people. So I thought, let me send it to my parents, see what they think. Shockingly, my parents agreed with it. They said, you know what? This is their country. We need to try harder to be more like English people, to be more like white people, you know? So I put them in a care home and I stopped talking to them. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. We've got like one Q&A, political Q&A coming up. I'll give it back to your host. Is that okay? Yeah? Yeah? All right, cool. But thank you for a wonderful evening. Thank you for Birmingham. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Big round of applause. Fine. So Before we announce the next panel, can we have a massive round of applause for our sponsors and for our volunteers who've been working really, really hard on this thing? I know they will be told about this again. The next one will be the last panel for the day, and this is about this particular juncture, as in what next for British Muslims representation. I did ask you in the beginning of the program to please register, the bit about the vote. We're talking about the general elections for now, so I want you to consider that. But we're going to have a very, very interesting and exceptionally important panel discussion today. And this will be moderated by Zara, who I'll now invite, by Hassan Patel, sorry, who I will now invite on to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to the greatest city in this country, Birmingham. And we even took the weather came out as well for you today. So inshallah, this panel discussion will consist of myself, Zara Mohammed, the Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain, and Aqil Ahmed as well. For those of you who don't know Aqil Ahmed, he's the former head of religion and ethics at both Channel 4 and the BBC. He has won numerous awards from Emmy to BAFTA. Aqil is currently a non-executive director of broadcasting and communications regulator Ofcom, Elstree Film Studios, Film Cymru, and the Bradford Literature Festival. He is also a member of the Council of the Higher Education Funding Council for Wales, and a senior independent panelist for public appointments in Wales, and a former director of Advertising Standards Authority. And for his sins, he supports Bolton Wanderers. But you can't have everything all. Anyway, the panel discussion, it's about what is next for British Muslim representation. We're entering a very quiet summer period where we'll hopefully get to watch the Euros, watch the Olympics, and somehow ignore the general election that's coming our way. But as we've seen since October the 7th, there's been a huge impact on the Muslim perspective, the Muslim vote. And when I mean the Muslim vote, I mean not the organization, but the actual Muslim vote itself. And similarly, trials and tribulations, but challenges as well for the British Muslim community. So we'll try and get some nuances in relation to the answers. Now for this, I would urge you all to partake with questions and comments, but not long speeches. I will try and cut you off if I feel you are going a bit too much, i.e. 10, 15, 20 minutes into a speech. But there's someone there with the microphone, so I'll choose who the speakers are. But before we begin and get the crowd involved, Zara, I think I just want to start off by asking you, representation of British Muslims at this current juncture, has it considerable challenges? In your humble opinion, where are we now?
Yeah, thank you so much, Hassan. Come join us in the sofa chat. And I think we're going to make this a very interactive and engaging conversation. What a time to be the Secretary General. Since October, it's been non-stop. And I think our worlds have been totally turned upside down. It's safe to say that there hasn't been a part of our community, whether you are the leader of the institution of the mosque, whether you're in work and employment, whether you're a councillor or an MP, whether you're an imam or a scholar or an academic, there hasn't been a single person that's not had to address the issue of Gaza. And there hasn't been a single person that's not had to deal with the demonization of Muslims, the threefold, 500-600% increase of Islamophobia, but also for us at the MCB, dealing with the hard political and media narratives that surround us. So where are we now? And I don't want to go into the negative too much, but critical things to talk about, headline. Just it was what, Ramadan? For half of Ramadan, we spent fighting for our very existence as the MCB to not be put on an extremist list, right? And to put that into consideration for this room, we are the broad-based, mainstream Muslim community. All of you are here representative of that. And when I went on Newsnight after it was found that we weren't going to be on the list, I said, seriously? You're going to consider, I've got a background in international human rights law. I'm going to be an extremist, and everybody I represent is going to be an extremist? Is that where we're really at? That's most of the Muslim community. So the fact that we got to a point in our political conversation where that was, and what was that connected to? That list was about Muslim organizations and pro-Palestinian advocacy groups and neo-Nazi groups. I'm not really sure what they all have in common. And so part of it is that. Then the other part of it is around our political parties and how we're struggling to find a home right now. And my 19-year-old sister is volunteering today. She said, I don't really know who to vote for. Most of us in this room are struggling. We want to engage. We're absolutely going to register to vote. We're absolutely going to take part because that's our democratic right. But I think Muslims are, where are we now? We're really considering the work that we need to do to change things. We're considering how we need to work better together. We're considering where we need to invest our money. But most critically, we're considering how much has really changed for British Muslims that we now need to change for serious. Because I think MCB was set up at the time of Salman Rushdie, the Satanic Verses, and it was set up to respond to a crisis. We've had our 9/11s, our 7/7s, but I think this actually is going to be one of those moments where all of us are going to continue to shape and define it. So I think the question's with all of us, what next? But we have come a long way to do something about it, and that's where I think we can hopefully have this conversation.
Thank you, Zara. Akil, since October, well, I would say before, from working in the media, there's always been that pressure on the British Muslim community, divided loyalties, questioning loyalties, or currently constantly being told, do you condemn Hamas, which is constantly on our screens. How significant do you think over the past 6 months the media has been in relation to the British Muslim position?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Well, it's a good question. I'm going to put my professor of media hat on now and say, first of all, the word media isn't necessarily, it has to be understood, really. So when we talk about the media, we have to understand newspapers are very different to social media, very different to television and radio. Now, of course, I'm speaking in a personal capacity here, not as a director of Ofcom, but television and radio is regulated by Ofcom. So therefore, you don't see the same thing. So when we talk about the media, we have to be very careful about antagonizing people and also bringing up our own kind of misunderstanding about how it all works. Newspapers, on the other hand, regulate themselves. That's a really important thing. So one is regulated by government act of law, and one decides themselves what is right or wrong. Then the ownership of newspapers is very different. So therefore, the fact of the matter is, newspapers, I actually don't find it that bad, because for the point of view, if you've been around long enough, you remember what the newspapers were like in the 70s and 80s and early 2000s. They were much more polarized than they are now. Now they're actually, the newspaper circulation is absolutely dead. And if any of you come from London and you've heard of the Evening Standard, 2 years ago, the Evening Standard used to print 800,000 copies a day. At this moment in time, it is printing 200,000 copies a day, and it gives them away for free, by the way. It is closing down, effectively, in the next few months, because they've decided to, they've decided that basically there's no money in it. Right now, the fact of the matter is, what that shows is that people are not getting their news from newspapers. So what the newspapers then go on and do, they will have to become more extreme to prop up the kind of people that who actually are buying newspapers. So if you understand the media landscape, then you'll understand why the world that we're in. Now, in terms of going back to your actual question, I think that we have to separate newspapers and television and radio. At the moment, social media is not regulated, just so you know that. It is actually not regulated. It is a wild west. So therefore, things that you see on social media are a joke. Sometimes you'll see things from GB News or Sky News or BBC News or whoever it is, and you'll think, that's ridiculous, that's clickbait. And it is clickbait, because that's how they're making money, because they're not making any money from television anymore, they're not making any money from radio, and they're not making any money from newspapers. So where do they make their money from? Advertising on social media. So every time you forward on, if you really want this to all stop forwarding things that you don't like. Because every time you forward it, somebody else clicks it, they forward it, somebody else clicks it. Guess what? That's how they're all making money, right? So the fact of the matter is, we have the power in our own hands to actually not amplify messages that we don't like. But we don't understand that, because actually we're all media illiterate. All of us, myself included, right? And I've got a title in media. But the fact of the matter is, we're all media illiterate. So actually we need to understand that. But going back to the question you put, so those of you obviously won't know, I've been a backroom boy for most of my career, but I've made the first ever film on the Hajj, on the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, on the Quran, even on the Ashura in Iraq, the first one post Saddam Hussein. I could go on. I even did the first interviews with failed Palestinian suicide bombers. I had access to Hamas when they became a government. I had access to Hezbollah, all these things. The fact of the matter is, the media was in a different place, and you can't compare what it was before to what it is now. So post October the 7th, and what we've seen in the complete kind of onslaught and how many people quite rightly describing things as a genocide, I think what that has done is actually, if you look at the background that I gave about social media and clickbait, etc., then you have to have all of that stuff. But what you've also got to remember is the way that social media works is a much bigger version of how newspapers used to work, which is the algorithms mean that if you like something, that's what you will get. So if you click on something, you'll get more of it. So the fact of the matter is, everybody who's in their silos is getting the same kind of information, and you're not getting a wide breadth of information. So, and I can tell you this now, so that when you then watch something which is regulated, like BBC News, Sky News, whatever it is, everyone ends up hating it. But actually it's regulated, because if you complain about it, you'll find that they will be found innocent, and you'll say, how are they innocent? Because you're used to seeing something of a certain nature. So I know this is not a nice message to relay, but the message has to be this, which is, we have to understand how the media works. Newspapers, social media is all about clickbait. It's all about, they're not charities. They're not our friends. They're about making money. Whereas television in this country is regulated, and that's the place that you can actually see some kind of change. What I would say is, the crossroads that we're at, we need to ensure that this next government, if it is a Labour government, implements Leveson 2. It implements the regulation of newspapers.
What Leveson 2 is?
Leveson 2 is, so Leveson was the inquiry into the regulation of newspapers. It was never implemented. What we're asking the next government, if it is a Labour government, we're asking them to, and they've said that they will as well, that they will implement the regulation of newspapers. If they regulate if newspapers are regulated, we will start to see a difference, because then the language that is used will be very different to the language that is used on, as you will notice, the language that's used on television and radio, by mainstream television and radio I should add, is very different to the language that's used in newspapers. So that's what I would say. What we've seen is, it's not that it's getting worse, it's just that actually we have much more access to information now than we had ever in the past. And the most of the information we're getting, because we're not getting it from television, we're getting it from social media, is amplified to what we want to see. So that when you then see something on newspaper, in the television and radio, you hate it. And I can tell you one thing now, which will always freaks people out. The other side hates the BBC. Everybody hates British broadcasting. You want to try and be me going in, when I was the head of religion at the BBC, trying to get in and out of Israel. It would have been easier for me to say I work for Al Jazeera, right? Because at one point they don't like the BBC because they think the BBC is anti-Israeli, right? Why? Because it actually positions the truth, like as we're used to seeing. But, and I will just say this, and I know it's not very popular, it's not a popular opinion, it could be a lot worse. Can you imagine if there was no regulated news? Then what would you get? You would not know what's going on. Well, you'd get Fox News and you'd get GB News or whatever it may be. You would get the kind of news coverage which doesn't make any sense at all. Watch American news and watch our news and then complain to me afterwards.
Thank you, Akil. A myriad of issues there pertain to media and also British Muslim representation. Questions or comments? This gentleman over there. And then I'll take to that gentleman there. And a lady, a female voice. Got to be fair here, guys. Right. Sister over there. So, if you give your name and the question.
It's not switched on. I think it's on. It's on now. Okay, I just want to, my question is about an idea that was seeded at this table about 20 minutes ago, which is creative industries, opportunity, certainly for the UK, Muslim communities, challenge, opportunity in the UK. Point being, and correct me, Akil, if I'm wrong, we don't really have a network and initiative bringing those two together effectively, particularly in relation to pipelines. So my question is this: what can we do to better support, strengthen the pipeline of Muslims from diverse backgrounds going into the creative industries in the UK in the next 3 years?
We'll take two more, and then we'll attempt to answer the questions. Gentlemen, actually, if you want to ask the sister there first, and then go to the gentleman at the end.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Ruxana Halim. I'm from South Yorkshire. It was very brave of you what you said, brother. I'll give you that, definitely. My question, it's more around on the basis of freedom of speech. So as Muslims, when we're in certain areas, certain events, certain conferences, we're really particular about our language. Until we don't get our freedom of speech, I don't think we're going to get very far. So an example is Allahu Akbar. If I went to a conference which did not look like this, and I said Allahu Akbar, I'm wearing a hijab. Now just imagine if I was a brother with a beard carrying a rucksack and saying Allahu Akbar. Now we all know how that's going to end. So until we don't have freedom of speech, we're not going to move very forward. So what do we do as Muslims, is my question to you.
Okay. Thank you. And
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Hamid Azad. I am Central President of Muslim Community Association. May I ask a question and make a comment, inshallah?
sure, but make the
Yes.
comments short, sharp, and sweet.
Question is, thank you very much, Brother Akil and Sister Zara. So what a community organization, Muslim community organization like us can do to stop this media onslaught? This is the question. Comment is, actually, we are a member of a wonderful ummah, and we all know that the very inception of this ummah is to ensure the peace and welfare of humanity on earth. But this very ummah of peace and tranquility is now branded as a ummah of terrorism or terrorist. This ummah is victim of inhumanity, unprecedented oppression, and slaughtering now, and injustice. The question is, who is responsible? We can point finger to many of others. But I think when we reflect carefully, vast level of responsibility fall upon us. It is our disunity, it is our inaction, and it is our distance from the root, which is Quran and Sunnah, that is causing now this disaster. So what is the answer? What is the solution? I think the only answer
I'm
is
really
unity.
sorry, brother. I'm really
concluding.
sorry, but time is of an essence.
Yeah.
Have you asked your question?
Yeah, I'm saying only answer is the unity. So just I want to make one request to this audience, we must strengthen organization like MCB. We must come forward and
Jazakallah.
must have the commitment.
Thank you so much. Sorry for being slightly on the ball, but I have to get the people's points in. Zara, if I could ask you in terms of freedom of speech, what can we do? Could you tackle that question?
So, I mean, look, we had that scenario during the local elections. There was the Green Party councillor, sorry, looking over there. You know, there were lots of really excitable individuals who won the election. Some of them used the phrase Allahu Akbar and got featured in the Telegraph and every other major publication. It created quite a hysteria. And it's, you know, I think in some ways it's been so negatively reinforced with a caricaturization of terrorism and Al-Qaeda and everything. So we just launched, the Center for Media Monitoring just launched 2 weeks ago a terminology report, and this question was brought up. And there was a lady in the room that said we had to own the word and we should say it all the time, everywhere we go, to which all of us just cringed a little bit and thought, not really sure that's a keeper. But look, it's a very difficult climate, and it's not, that word didn't just change overnight. That freedom of speech wasn't inhibited overnight. That is 20 years in the making of how that has been used and hijacked by individuals and reinforced by the media. And I think we have to be smarter. So, of course, in a certain context, it's going to be framed like that, but that shouldn't limit our ability to engage in the conversation. So part of that report was educating journalists and helping them understand what that actually means and rephrasing it. But also it's about us being smarter to our environments, knowing that if 99.5% of the room don't know what that means, and you're saying it in that way, then maybe that's just not the right context to use it in. You know, and one of the scholars in the room, he made a good point. He goes, you know, all of our religious words have a nobility to them and a dignity that they also need to be used as well. So I think part of it's understanding, well, we are a minority engaging with a majority audience who don't get us. We've got to build that relationship. Part of it is being our rights being infringed, and we have to tactically deal with that as well. But also I think it's that wider political context where British Muslims and Muslims in the West, it didn't just start yesterday, therefore it's not just going to change tomorrow. And all of us have to play a role in our respective fields to change it. And I think things like the Center for Media Monitoring is doing, and both these wonderful journalists to my left and right have been doing in the field, are trying to change that.
Thank you, Zara. Akil, what can we do to strengthen the creative industries and individuals within news and journalism?
Yeah, I think both of those things are linked in many ways, but you're right. In terms of the creative industries, people have got to join. I know it sounds really stupid. It's that simple. Look, the creative industries, just so you know, is one of the biggest industrial drivers in this country. It's worth tens of billions of pounds. Yet, I've got a production company. I've got something quite, at the moment, I've got something in paid development with the BBC, which I use the word paid because that means they're paying me to develop it, so they have an investment in that project. I don't know of any, there's a couple of us, a couple of Muslims who may have their own television production company or big, a proper mainstream production company. This is an industry worth tens of billions. We should be involved in it. Now, how do you get involved in that? Well, there's a number of issues. One is I'm speaking now as an academic and all those kind of things. We don't have people applying to go on the courses. Plus also, this is going to sound incredibly elitist, but it's not meant to be. So I'm the son of a market trader, right? My dad drove here to England like many, many people did, right? So I'm not multi-generational kind of like liberal middle class. Came from Lahore, so we may have had a bit of a step up than some other people did. But we came to this country in Manchester and then built a career, got educated, got jobs. I joined this industry in '92 when I graduated and I got a job at the BBC as a researcher. The fact of the matter is that I went on to become a senior executive at the BBC and all these roles that I've had. The vast majority of people that I have worked with in the upper echelons of the media industry went to Oxford, Cambridge or Russell Group universities. So the fact of the matter is the very best of the best are the ones who go in and make the difference. So you're right, so Arif, there's a pipeline issue, but you know what? There is no point getting somebody in who isn't going to be able to compete with the best of the best. So it's actually the people that go on who may become a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, that's the kind of person you're competing against. My peers, I had a degree in film, right? But my peers had degrees in economics, in English, in PPE, politics, philosophy and economics, history. I think but when I left the BBC, I had all sorts of roles, and one of the things that I did was actually, we instigated a thing which was all the senior leaders who were from a diverse background, not Muslims, diverse background, were to be interviewed because we had a pipeline issue about why we were not going on to the next level, right? Not to director level. And I think it was about 40 people that were interviewed. And I was one of them, obviously, and we had a group meeting, and there was 8 of us. And at the end of it, the facilitator said, "Oh, I know that you're the instigator of this," and we started chatting. And then she jokingly said to me, "So what university did you go to?" Because we were laughing. Because what she meant was, I was the only one that didn't mention which university I went to. Why? Because I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge, and all the other 7 people in that room mentioned university at some point, or college. When I worked on Panorama in the early 90s, the first question that one of my colleagues said to me was, "Which college did you go to?" Not which university, which college. And I remember saying to them, Wigan College of Technology. But I did also do a year at Dewsbury and Batley Technical College as well. And I knew what they meant, but I wasn't going to give them the time off. So the fact of the matter is, we have to get in, and we have to be the best of the best. Not the riffraff, the best of the best have to go for this if you're going to be in a position of power. Now, the thing is, when we talk about freedom of speech and all those kind of things, the crossroads that we're at is our numbers are significantly growing in this country. And so therefore, the work that I'm doing right now a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes that we don't know. We have had a change, right? So Hassan knows about this, and you know about this, the work that I've done with you can go online onto the website of the Film and TV Charity, and you can see a huge piece of work we did, which I led on, which was a survey initially of Muslims, Jewish and Arab people working in the film and TV industry. The reports come out, it's damning, it's not good. 95% of us feeling that our mental health is detrimentally affected in the workplace. Issues around broadcasting and language and Gaza, etc. All of those things. Right now, we are rolling out mandatory. It's happening. We're doing the work on it now. All the broadcasters and the big super indies, the super big production companies, the Netflixes of this world, everybody has committed. Maybe not Netflix yet, but they will do, I'm sure. But have committed to mandatory Islamophobia training for their senior executives and going down. Now, that will hopefully, over the time, we'll see that difference, which goes back to the questions we've been having. You have to, when I first started work, initiatives were put in place about getting more women into senior leadership roles. That has happened. Most of television is run by women. You know, then over the last 20 years, we had initiatives about diversity full stop. We've seen the fact that we now have 9, 10, 12, 13, 14% of the workforce comes from a culturally diverse background. This is the beginning of the next step, which is now the work we're doing on understanding Islamophobia, etc., which, to Zara's point and your question on freedom of speech, is because we have such poor religious literacy that actually, nobody actually knows what any of these things mean. So that's why you can, into that vacuum of knowledge, you can say what you like. And that's the problem. It's exactly what you said. It's choosing your battles and choosing your locations where you say things. You know, if I said the word jihad now, people would lock me up, right? But 20 years ago, I was writing articles in mainstream broadcast magazines talking about what we need in broadcasting is a jihad, and then explaining what it meant, and nobody could, and they all thought it was quite funny. And what a very clever use of words, Akil. And if you can imagine, you know, the press office at the BBC saying, "Yeah, that's great, oh, great," would not happen now. So, you know, the fact of the matter is, people now will be terrified of that word because they don't understand what it means. So we need better religious literacy in society. And we need to be careful about ourselves understanding the illiteracy levels that people have, because they then impose onto them their own kind of interpretation of what they think a word means.
Thank you. I'm going to try and attempt to answer your question. We're living in an era now where content is king or queen, and you can create your own content. So your organization should be on social media platforms creating your own content. That may not get you a slot in the media, but you're controlling that content, creating that content, pushing that content out. You have the platforms, Twitter or X or TikTok or Instagram. Secondly, there's this feeling amongst many Muslim organizations that if you're in Bradford or Rochdale or Redditch, that when you want to engage with the media, you're thinking of you're engaging with Sophie Rayworth from BBC Newsnight, No, take it down a notch, 2 or 3. Focus on local media. Because the work that you're doing is locally, it's making that impact. Engage with your local media. Find out who your main people are. In this city of Birmingham, there's a journalist called Jane Hayes. She works for Birmingham Live. A few of the brothers are nodding their heads. Kamran and brothers at Muad Trust. Why? Because she's done stories on Green Lane Masjid, on the Muad Trust, on various organizations within Birmingham. But that's years and years of networking and winning her over, working with her, inviting her to events. And if that's one kind of, with my comms hat on, I would suggest, engage with local media. Invite them to your events. You may not get the story or the bite of the cherry the first time, but trust me, it will pay off. Moving on, some more questions. So any more points? Right, Ahmad, right at the end over there. And while our MC is running to him, a quick question for all of you is that we're running a poll, which should be up on the screen. That's where I don't have any control. When he gets there in the end, we'll do it. But let's get that microphone working so Ahmad can ask a question, and then I'll mention after his question what I want you to do.
Ahmed Bostan from Penny Appeal. I'm also a recovering politician. I just want to, first of all, Hassan, if I may, congratulate the Muslim Council of Britain for mobilizing, I think, it's fair to say, the most inspirational executive that we've seen for a very long time from Muslim organizations, exemplified by Zara Muhammad as the General Secretary, and also having yourself and Akil on the panel today, by far the most inspirational, not just British Muslims, but some of the most inspirational British people that I've seen engaged in the media sector for many, many years. So really honored to have you all here today. I just want to ask a very quick question. Over recent months, we've seen across the political spectrum an open license of language being used, actions being executed against Muslims and members of the Muslim community that many of us would have thought unthinkable even 12 months ago, 24 months ago. Of course, that's not a reflection on all politicians and all political parties, many of whom are doing great work, but there are a certain few. And my question would be, what can we as British Muslims do to reverse the trend on this negative trajectory? Is it on us? Are the actions on us to change this trajectory? Or is there a wider problem at play? Do we need to adopt what Akil was saying around organizing within the media? Is that the same remedy when it comes to politics and the political spectrum? Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Before we answer that question, any more? Brother Nawaz is at the front here. Boy, you're going to lose a bit of weight today.
Assalamu alaikum. Nafshi Jaffa, Haider Islamic Center and MCB. In the past, MCB has produced the Muslim Manifesto, and it'd be good to understand what the timetable is in relation to that, provide some guidance to the community. And separately, of course, we're all upset with the tragedy unfolding and continuing to unfold in Gaza. What more can we do and the MCB do to influence a positive change?
Thank you. I'll just stop there because I think there's some strong questions here. In relation to the Muslim Manifesto, Zara, would you like to comment on that?
Nearly done. We're working our socks off, so hopefully we just had to get the conference out of the way. There's a lot going on. Yeah, we're nearly done. There was a bit of a conference and a general election hysteria going on. So they're just being finalized. They will be with you ASAP because we know we're in a bit of a hurry. And yeah, I think I'll take a little bit of the Gaza. And I think, Hassan, you should definitely comment on you resigned from political membership over this, and I think you do. So look, from our point of view, it's so, I mean, we always say, what more can we do? Because we're all desperate to do more. You know, from trying to get funds in, but knowing that the aid was being blocked. I mean, the MCB's letter campaign, funny story, I was speaking to a member of parliament, and they said, I received 7,000 emails on this, and 13,000 in our inbox. And I was laughing afterwards saying, yeah, that's probably because of our Write to Your MP tool. We sent 130,000 letters within a month, right? We clogged every single member of Parliament's inbox with that letter, because they said some of them were just repeats, and I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, people are very passionate about the topic. So the point being is, we have looked at the vast spectrum of what we could do to make an impact. Politicians heard us loud and clear, yeah? The global solidarity on Palestine is so phenomenal. I don't think, you know, young people, whether they're very religious or not, have been very energized with this conversation. I think now is the time for learning and action. And the learning that we took away was there was a heck of a lot we could have done better, but it was so unprecedented, we didn't know. I think it's not just that term being organized, but it's understanding how power works. That was the big penny drop moment for me, was understanding how power works. Because you can make the loudest noise, and I remember just meeting the Palestinian ambassador, and he said, our communities need to do this a lot better. He goes, we turn up. We absolutely visibly turn up to the protests, and we're there. But do we understand the corridors of power and how change actually happens? And that was what my learning was, very humbly and honestly, was that there was so much we could do, but who really gets to change it? Because all of us are witnessing it. And if you're a human being, you can't witness it and not feel what we're feeling. But there we have it, right? We're still not at ceasefire. We're still not stopping. We don't know where the cost is. We don't know what's the tipping point. And so for us as a community, political literacy and understanding power and understanding our access to power, our influence of power, but when are decisions really made and who makes them? And we've got a lot of work to do that. We're a very young community. We are always in the news, so we've got to catch up quick. But a lot of that inspired this conference, which was actually going to happen in November, and we obviously decided not to, but I still went ahead. And a lot of people say, well, it's difficult to be positive. We're not saying being positive, we're saying let's be productive. Let's progress the conversation, because here I sit with all of you as partners at a table saying we need to get to work. We are already doing a lot of work, but we really got to get to work. General elections come and go. This isn't going to change the future for us. We shouldn't kid ourselves on that. Yeah, there's been lots of general elections. They'll have more. Politics of the establishment has been around for a very long time, ladies and gentlemen. And so change for British Muslims and how our story is told, well, is that going to change after the general election? Who the government engages with or doesn't engage, is that going to change after the general election? That's all rooted in us, actually. That's rooted in the need. So the question would be, well, why do we need to engage with Muslim communities? Can't we just cherry pick? Which is what they do, right? So the question is, if we become an influential power, today we talked about business and entrepreneurship. Do you know how much we bring to the economy? We have to change the way we frame the conversation. But I'll close there. But from our point of view, we're going to continue to do our bit and get that manifesto done ASAP.
Akil, anything you want to add to that?
No, just very brief on that, which is actually Zara's got it in one. It's access to power, isn't it? We need everything. We need absolutely everything. You know, it's very interesting. You know, I have people who've been calling me for decades Uncle Tom without realizing, because of all the stuff I've done, because I don't shout about it. If I shouted about it, look, I'm one of the founders of Mosaic, right? The Prince Trust organization. We originally set it up to mentor Muslim boys, then it became Muslims, then it became anybody, and God knows who it is now because I've got no involvement with it anymore. I don't even think it exists, right? But we set that up all those years ago because it was important. And I mentioned something which is, it may sound a bit personal, but it's not. And it's to make you understand how the way the world works. Everybody on that board, apart from me, got an OBE, right? Why did I not get one? Well, I can tell you why I didn't get one. Because I'm controversial Muslim, because of the programs that I've made, because yet Muslims who don't know me abuse me and will call me an Uncle Tom, but the establishment, and I can tell you some horror stories about how I've been treated in the last few years in terms of being offered roles that have then not happened and all sorts of things. The establishment doesn't see me as that. They see me as a troublemaker, right? So the fact of the matter is, why am I a troublemaker? Because I am actually, unlike the people who might be just shouting and going on a demonstration, which we need as well, the fact of the matter is I've become that pain in the back who is actually in the meeting with them saying the things that they need to hear. And they don't like it, but the fact of the matter is we need that access to power. You need to know how to communicate. We all need to do that, and we need to be doing it at all levels, whether it be visible action, writing to our MPs, but also having the ability to, I have to be careful because things are recorded, right, obviously. But the fact of the matter is, you have to have jobs. So why did I become a non-exec director at Ofcom and Advertising Standards Authority and Film Cymru and all these kind of things? I can't answer that, but maybe you can guess. The fact of the matter is, when we have conversations about language and about legal things and about whether GB News maybe should be investigated or whatever it may be, isn't it better that we're actually in the conversation rather than just moaning about it on the outside? So we have to be moaning about it on the outside and actually on the inside as well.
Just want to add on from that is language is essential, messaging is essential as well. Okay, I'm using my comms hat again, but how you say things, when you say things, if you say things, or should you say things matter. Understanding your levels of what you should say. Now, ultimately, not everyone can be a comms person, but if you have your organizations, liaise with those who work in comms, not me, there are others as well, and try and graft that narrative. Sheikh Nuru not only is an inspirational imam in the city of Birmingham, he's also a trustee of Citizens UK, an organization that we're both part of. And there's something called power analysis, where you kind of look at power, you analyze power, you see where power lies, and you build up power yourself. And that's something that we as Muslims or as individuals should also focus on as well, where power matters, whom power matters with. However, I do also believe that in relation to language, as someone asked, Ahmed asked there, you got to hold power to account. You have to call out where things are wrong. We are witnessing a seismic political shift in the British Muslim community. Gone are the days of the Biradri system telling their wives and their children and their daughters who to vote for. We're seeing that completely change. I can say that because I can be a bit controversial for those that know me. Gatekeepers aren't holding doors anymore, or the gates in this case. So we need to leverage that. And those Muslims who are engaging in the political process, whether getting the independent vote out or standing up to power, support them. Don't diss them. Give them that support, because ultimately this is an evolution of the Muslim community. I have family in South Africa. They've just had an election just yesterday. The ANC, for the first time in 30 years, have not got a majority. Now, everybody assumed that because of the Gaza situation, the ANC would walk that election with the Muslim community. But the Muslim community actually held them to task because of the epic failures in the economy, in the cost of living. So there's an element of political maturity as well. Of course, we need to focus on Gaza, have that as a key political issue, but also understand that when we as a community are living in 40% of the most deprived wards in this country, where we are 3.5% of the population, Uncle Jamil, 6%, but we're 18% of the prison population. There's a bit of work to be done there. Now, it's come back off again. All right, we'll get that back on, but Brother Masood has one question, and then I'll come to you, sir. Do you want to use my microphone? Go on then.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Oh.
Okay, we'll just swap it.
That's the conservative one. It's got a blue label on it, I think. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I just want to make a very brief comment and then a question, especially to Brother Akil, because I have discussions with Sister Zara regularly. The last, one of the workshop I just moderated with Dr. Hani Al-Banna and others, I finished off by saying that وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah and do not be divided. Our power is in our strength, in our unity. And many people know that, and that's why the whole world is divided into different regions, different sections, different communities, and some people are sitting there enjoying the infighting that goes on. And at a micro level, even in our community organizations, there are difficulties and challenges, and we all have to rise above that and realize our strength. But ultimately, when we talk about power, our power is entrusted, our power comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power or might other than the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yes, we can all feel depressed and helpless and lacking in confidence and whatever sometimes, and rightly so. But we also need to remind ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us, and He will give us the strength that we need as long as we work for Him sincerely and we work towards improvement, inshallah. The question to you, Brother Aqil, as someone, I also have a bit of background in media. And during my early days, I interviewed some presidents. One of them is in prison at the moment.
After your interview, or was it before?
In fact, as it happens, many of them either collapse or end up in prison after my interview.
So just make sure you don't get interviewed by Brother Masood.
Okay.
Anyway, your question.
The question is, how do we constructively challenge media narratives at a mass level? And this is a challenge because some communities, small communities, they're very good at kind of utilizing their power and using channels like Ofcom and whatever to raise their voices. But how comes we are not able to, being quite a large community, able to utilize those powers?
I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I think we've answered that really well. It's quite a simple thing, really, and that is, if you don't have people working in the industry, then you don't have people in positions of power who can then be actually asked to have these roles. It's quite basic, really. I mean, I don't like some of the what you were alluding to be honest with you. I think you have to be careful about language that we use and how people interpret one of the things I think you were trying not to say, and that is, other communities may have been here for a long time. They may be multi-generationally educated, and they may be working in positions of seniority where they have the ability to be involved with Ofcom or of that nature. What I would say is, any of us who've got children, or any of us of whatever age we're at actually now, if we're under the age of 40 or 50, maybe we should be thinking about joining the civil service fast stream or joining Ofcom's kind of like postgraduate kind of scheme. Because basically you have to get in to be able to affect things later on. You can't be a kind of like a pundit and expect to sit on kind of Ofcom's board. You have to be somebody that actually has worked for a broadcaster or a telecommunications company as a senior executive. So the answer is quite simple, really, which I said to answer Arif's question all that time ago, which is, if we don't have people working in the creative sector and we don't have them in the numbers that we need, and if we don't have the people who will then gravitate to the top, then nothing will change.
I would just like to add on to that point, but the poll is now up. Use the QR code and follow the instructions, and then we'll look at some of the answers. Now, if you're part of that conversation, it makes a huge difference. In 2018, or 2017, I was head of planning at Al Jazeera Media Network in Doha, and the Israeli government kicked out all foreign journalists from Gaza. So anyone who was foreign was kicked out from Gaza. Most of the news outlets happily obliged, even Al Jazeera to a certain degree. But I remember sitting in a room having a conversation with the Al Jazeera executive, and we were deciding what to do next. Suddenly, we don't have any people in Gaza. What do we do? So some bright spark, who now works for Middle East Eye, said, why don't we train the local journalists? Great idea. Let's train them. We trained Yumna al-Said. We trained Wael al-Dawdu. Two voices who have brought the story of Gaza to the world's attention. However, that would not have happened if certain people were not in that room making those calls. Now, Al Jazeera is slightly different to the BBC, I understand that. But if you want to get up into that conversation, you need to get more engaged and be part of the decision-making process. I've been told time's up. However, can we follow the online poll to see what? If everybody votes now? Pardon? So let's get one more question in. No?
The questions are, how are people going to vote on the election? What do they think?
Oh, the question is, how are people going to vote on the election? What are the key issues? And then we can discuss that. So can we do it now, or do you have to wait for a few minutes? So can I ask, get one more question in? Or we have to finish? Okay. All right, that's fine. I've been told that we have to finish. So Akil Ahmed, Zara Mohammed, many thanks for your time. And thank you for your questions, comments, and opinions. And I apologize if I had to shut some of you down, but time is of the essence. Media, politics are two things which you can do PhDs on and talk, and talk. Thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum.
You'll be here, right? So I can tell people if they want to talk to you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What an exceptional day it's been listening to everybody. And it gives us great pleasure on behalf of MCB to invite Mayor Shaheen Ashraf to please come onto the stage and speak to the delegates who have assembled today at this event.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So what a fascinating debate that was. I've been a humanitarian for over 30 years. I work for Islamic Relief. I'm the head of global advocacy. But at the moment, I have to remain apolitical this year. But I know many of you in the room. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Kamran, how are you? Others, everybody else, Asma, Brother Awad. I think something that was said just now was about change. I think I'm living proof of that change. Solihull 2019, I was a one-woman protest outside the council when they said all Muslims go back home. A one-woman protest. I asked for my brothers and sisters in Birmingham to come over to Solihull, but no. 2019, I was elected in the borough. 2 years ago, I became deputy leader, and here I am standing as the mayor of Solihull, and I think change can happen if you look at localized level understanding, and I think this is where I want to go today. Thank you, Zara, for your persistence. I'm sorry, but the mayor's office in Solihull has lots of protocols, and Zara persisted way throughout that, so thank you so much for that. And thank you for the MCB for this conference as well. And as we come to the end of this conference, and I've heard and I've listened, and thank you for my wonderful team, Team 2, who won the competition earlier, but we had a great time at that little discussion there. I'm filled with gratitude and hope, and I think this is what the message that I'd like to go away with today. And I'm reminded of the profound teachings of the Holy Quran, particularly from Surah Al-Hujurat, verse 13, which reminds us of our shared humanity, our diversity, and our true measure of nobility in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we're not going away from here without understanding that. In Surah Hujurat, it speaks to us as, we have created you into nation and tribes. So there's 5 lessons. Unity in diversity. The unity that we've seen calls us and embraces us, and we have diverse languages, we have diverse cultures, we have diverse traditions, not just as sources of division, but as opportunities for mutual respect and enrichment. Our differences should serve as bridges, bringing us closer together in understanding our harmony. And I'm going back to what Brother Akil and the other brother said, and then also what Zara was saying, is that during the prophetic time when people were talking about communication just now, There was the oral tradition of communication, of which we are losing the art. So this is a lesson to us. Public speaking and sermons, speaking truth to power. We are no longer those public speakers. Letters and written messages during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. We've stopped writing, we can click. You need to know how to write to be able to send the right message to the right people. Messengers and envoys. You are all messengers, you are all envoys. Understanding communication through that lens is the first lesson in understanding communication. And facilitation and dialogue, which the Prophet ﷺ did a lot of. He did a lot of dialogue and he did a lot of facilitation. Words that we all know. And I know one of the teams was planning to teach the imams. Facilitation and dialogue is key to that. Brothers and sisters, we've stopped dialoguing. It's easy to blame. But if we don't have the characteristics ourselves, how are we going to be those messengers? And my second point is purpose of diversity. The purpose behind our division into nations and tribes is to know one another. We live in the UK. We cannot be in our own echo chambers. You have to be outside your comfort zone in order to understand the community that you live in. You have to build that deep understanding. You have to build that empathy. You have to build those relationships. You have to base them on mutual respect and recognition. And yes, there will be differences. Each culture, each community adds its own unique wisdom and perspective. And that is what enriches our human experience. It's the tapestry of our human experience. And the third thing I want to share with you before I end, hopefully, true nobility, as we've learnt it. True nobility is not defined by race, it's not defined by nationality or social status, but righteousness and piety, which is what the reward will be for. Your righteousness and your piety. This divine criterion encourages us to cultivate our inner virtues, strive for excellence in our character, not looking at other people's character, in our own characters, and commit to justice and commit to compassion on this. Our worth is measured by our integrity and the sincerity of our actions. Let's do that first before we judge others. And the fourth one, we should have been first, is that divine awareness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all-knowing and all-wise. And this is something that Dr. Hani al-Banna, who is my teacher, my mentor, he tells me all the time. Allah is watching. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands the depths of our intentions and the sincerity of our efforts. We know how hard we've worked to do something, how far we've wanted to achieve something, but the reward will come from Him. And let's see it like that. That awareness, or this awareness, should inspire us to act with honesty and integrity. And this is how we should be seen when we are writing letters or talking to people. And it's those actions that are valued by our Creator. And then something for the sisters as well, resilience and overcoming challenges. I can say to you here that being here 5 years after being nominated or inaugurated, I reflect on my journey as a Muslim woman to break the barriers in a challenging environment, and often a hostile environment. Often when I've seen people turn their back towards me in 2024. What? A Muslim? You're going to appoint a Muslim? The path has not been easy, brothers and sisters, and this is why I'm talking about unity. I faced numerous obstacles, from stereotypes to biases, we all have. Significant challenges that tested my resolve. However, it is through the strength of my faith and the principles of righteousness and piety that I have found resilience to persevere. Our experiences of overcoming adversity are testaments to our strength and the unwavering support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this goes for bold commitments as well. There are prominent hadith you all know, and from Islamic jurisprudence to the bravery of Nusayba bint Ka'b, who defended the Prophet, peace be upon him, Muslim women who exemplified leadership, who exemplify courage and steadfast determination. I mean, there's enough Muslim women in this room who show leadership, who show courage and steadfast determination. And this is what I want to talk about, is these examples that remind us of unity is not merely a philosophical idea, but a practical necessity, dear brothers and sisters, as emphasized in Surah Hujurat, and those are the words that I'm going to go back to. And the words of wisdom, throughout history, we have Ali ibn Abi Talib and Khadija bint Khuwaylid, exemplified unwavering commitment. And two examples I will give you. They said, Ali radiallahu anhu said, patience over what pains you, and patience against what you covet. Fairness in governance. We are all mosques, all charities, all organizations. Fairness in governance teaches the importance and the importance of steadfastness and justice. And Khadija, radiallahu anha, I reflect on her deep words. To the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said, Allah will never disgrace you. And these are the words that I live by. Reflect how deep faith and understanding that she had. And as we navigate our own challenges, let us draw inspiration from their lives. So in conclusion, you'd be happy to know, as we leave this conference today, let us carry us with the profound messages that we've shared and learned today. And let's celebrate our differences and view them as opportunities to grow and learn. And I'd like to see next time in the MCB conference, not just Muslims, but everyone. Because how are you going to get your message out if you're talking to yourselves? Seriously, we need more people in the room that can be part of the people that carry that message. Let's strive for righteousness, knowing that our truth worth is defined by our character and our actions. And like in my day job, let us commit ourselves to justice and compassion, following the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Fatima radiallahu anha, who embodied these principles in their lives. And I just end with this. Our journey is not about anybody's personal success, but about contributing to a world of peace, understanding, and harmony. Thank you all for your presence, your engagement, and your commitment to these principles. And together, I think that we can build a better world, or at least a better community. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all and bless us all in our efforts. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. MCB is extremely grateful to the first Muslim woman mayor of Solihull. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his many traditions by the Rasul, has said, those who assemble for the cause or for a good cause will be promised the shade of the throne of Allah on the Day of Judgment. I invite all of you to join me in this prayer with your Ameens. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us are very, very thankful to you for joining us today on this very important journey. I request you to pray and thank all our hard-working volunteers who today have spent weeks and weeks preparing for today. Our wonderful workshop partners who have dedicated their time, our sponsors, our exceptional technical crew here, and of course the people from the stalls and the expo, the people of the main shed, man shed, and also everybody there. And I say on behalf of MCB, my name is Naeem, with your Zaman. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you have a lovely day today. Thank you. Okay, can I ask